I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law.
Well, that press conference has aged like milk because the new report about the Southport riots that has just come out says this.
Published report today by the Police Inspectorate. It found, and I quote, no conclusive evidence that the summer riots that were triggered by the Southport murders were coordinated by extremist groups. So, not far-right thugs then. And that most of the protesters were local, so it wasn't a coordinated cross-country effort.
Just to point out, Keir Starmer said in his press conference, he was very clear that these people coming to riot in Southport were people who had been bussed in and come on the trains and on coaches from elsewhere to disturb Southport's local area. But the report suggests they're mostly locals.
Were local and I'm quoting again, the violence was mainly unrelated to their ideology or political views. So not far-right thugs then. And it goes on to say, what were the reasons for these protests? So it does say they were protests. Keir Starmer, they're not protests. Were they then? Just a sort of spontaneous eruption of violence for no reason whatsoever. They were protesting against the migrant crisis, Keir. Anyway, as confirmed by this report, so His Majesty...
So there we go. Let's go back to what Keir Starmer said one more time.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend.
There we go. Far-right thuggery. That is what Keir Starmer called the Southport riots. He tried to demonise the right. We had people calling them the Farage riots and blaming Nigel Farage for these riots. Keir Starmer was... You know, I'm not supporting rioting. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think it is very wrong to try to attach these riots to, you know, trying to associate them with parties like the Reform Party and parties more on the right. I think that is deeply, deeply wrong. And it's not just Keir Starmer who was guilty of painting that picture. We had the media suggesting that these were all far-right riots as well. This is from BBC Verify. I have dug up this article from August last year. Violent Southport protests reveal organising tactics of the far right. And also that distinction between protests and riots. Yes, there was some of what you would call rioting behaviour that I would not support. But just saying, Keir Starmer standing up and saying, let's be clear, there is no protesting going on, this is just blatant rioting, completely disregards the fact that there were so many people that went to not just Southport but to other areas of the country to actually protest the country's immigration policy peacefully. There were loads of people that went along not to riot, but to go to a peaceful protest. There may have been some people in those protests who then took it too far and started rioting, but to suggest that every single person that turned up on the street to protest the immigration policy of this country was some kind of evil rioter is just blatantly wrong. It's Keir Starmer trying to divide and to demonise certain groups of individuals. I've tweeted this article to the BBC and asked them if they will now review the title of it, given that this report has made quite clear that these were not far-right organised protests. If you are protesting or rioting against immigration, that doesn't make you an extremist, right? I feel like this report, it kind of helps to clarify to the idiots on the left that being concerned about immigration doesn't make you far right, doesn't make you an extremist. It's normal. There are people all the way across the political spectrum, left and right, who care about immigration. That was very clear at the local elections and the Runcorn by-election we just had, where you had people who are typical Labour voters giving their vote to Reform instead. Typically left-wing people, not far-right people, actually caring about immigration and wanting to vote for Reform instead. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of tweets on this. So David Curtin, he says, police now admit that the protests in Southport against the murder of 3 girls and attempted murder of 8 were nothing to do with the far right. Keir Starmer and his ilk should be arrested under their own laws about disinformation and stirring up hatred. Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to give them a taste of their own medicine? I'm sure it won't happen, though. Keir Starmer doesn't get held to account for anything. This guy says, as a lawyer and barrister, Starmer knew full well that he was throwing around baseless accusations when he said the Southport riots were far right. But he did it anyway. He's a disgrace to his profession. He's a disgrace to politics. And he's a disgrace to Downing Street. Pretty damning tweet there. And an interesting tweet from Isabel Oakeshott. I've seen quite a few people asking this question, linking this new Southport story to what's going on with these Iranian terror suspects who are under investigation. And Isabel asks, are any of the Iranian terror suspects asylum seekers or refugees? How did they get here? Why is the government refusing to say? Better not be another Southport style cover-up. You know, if they end up causing more riots because they do not tell us the truth about who these Iranians are, how they got in the country, you know, given their awful intentions in this country, they could create a vacuum of information again and cause something similar. Okay, the reason why we had these anti-immigration protests and some rioting going on was because people wrongly thought, because of this vacuum of information, that Axel Rudy Cabana was somebody who came here on a boat. So they thought that those young girls lost their lives because of the failure of our government to control the country's borders, right? You could have the same situation happening here if they do not tell us what is going on. Now, there is an ongoing police investigation about these Iranian terror suspects, which means that Keir Starmer, the police, me, we can't say very much about what is going on. But those were the same concerns about Axel Rudy Cabana not prejudicing his trial. We know that we are allowed to know some nuggets of information that are relevant and that the public needs to know. I think they probably should be telling us, well, you know, they don't need to tell us their full background and everything, but can they please tell us, were these Iranian terror suspects, were they people who came across on some sort of visa, or, you know, had British citizenship, or dual citizens, or whatever else it was, right? Or did they come here illegally? They should clarify that for us, because else we are putting, you know, creating this information vacuum, and we've seen very clearly in August last year what an information vacuum can cause. So I'll leave that question with you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think about that story and this report on Southport. I'm Chloe Dobbs. Thank you very much for watching this video. Subscribe to Reasoned if you've not already.